Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I'm having some afternoon coffee. When my grandparents were alive, we would sit on their back porch and drink coffee, and it didn't matter if it was, they had a screened-in porch, and it didn't matter if it was 90 degrees in South Georgia. They were drinking coffee, and they drank coffee all day long, and both lived into their late 80s, early 90s, both. So coffee must be good for you. That's the moral of the story, and it is waking me up this afternoon. Okay, so Linqto, my sponsor, they added more PolySign today, and they opened their secondary market, the alternative trading system for PolySign only. And I think let me see here. I wanted to show you this video of how this thing works.
Need to raise cash for an unexpected expense? Or simply want to liquidate the equity from one or more of your Linqto investments? Now you can get liquidity from your investments on the Linqto platform. Here's how it works. Simply select the holding you want to sell in My Portfolio in the Account tab. Click the Sell button to set up your listing to sell your holding. First, choose your share price. Use our pricing guide to strategically set your price, then use the slider to select the number of shares you want to sell. You can see real-time calculations of the proceeds so you can adjust the price or the number of shares to get the amount of proceeds you need. Review the details of your sell offer and click the Create Offer button to confirm your listing to sell. Your shares are instantly available to purchase by other members on the Linqto platform. And as soon as they are sold, you'll be notified and the proceeds will be transferred to your cash account, ready to be realized or used for your next investment. Invest with confidence on Linqto, knowing you have a reduced risk of tying up your cash.
How cool is that? That's a game changer. Now, folks, I saw this graphic today from this Edo Farina. I saw this graphic and I was like, he said boom. I say boom too, because if you look at this graphic pretty much is a summary of why I've been here ever since I discovered Ripple back in 2013-14. This is what has captured my attention more than anything, is the connections. And I've spent the last 5 years showing you a lot of these same connections. And just take Craig Phillips, for instance. He was on the board of directors at Ripple. I think he may still be. He was with the Treasury. Rosie Rios was with the Treasury. Michael Barr was with the Treasury. Gene Sperling, who used to be on the board, was at the Treasury. And then, I can't, is that the symbol for the Fed? I'm not sure. We even had one from the SEC, Mary Jo White, who's one of Ripple's attorneys now. We've had some from the White House. Let's see, White House. Michael Warren. Then you've got, and a lot of these right here, there's Anna Manuel, and then she's a part of I can't remember the name of her firm, but it's Rice Hadley Gates and something, and these are all people that were in several administrations, but a lot of people that are like, what would you say, intelligence people? But anyway, the point is, never in my life have I seen any one startup company that had this many people coming from this many. There's even people that came from Swift, like Marcus Treacher and is it Marshawn Delatin? There's all kinds of people come from the World Economic Forum, all kinds of government agencies, and that is what has captured my attention and kept it. Uphold, look, will you be at XRP Las Vegas? Don't miss Uphold's Nancy Beaton and Robin O'Connell speaking on Saturday, May the 6th. I can tell you this, folks. I'll give you one date, May the 5th. And you just mark my words. You'll all know what I'm talking about after that day, May the 5th. First Republic bank shares halted for trading. That's not good. Now, Bittrex, turns out Bittrex also is going to fight the SEC the way that Coinbase is fighting the SEC. Now, this morning I did, every once in a while, for me, it's fun to go back and look, because I'm fascinated by how this whole industry came about. And many of you may not remember, but this woman, Katie Hawn right here, she was a assistant U.S. attorney. And she was the one that she always talks about how she went after the Silk Road, and they had sent her, and her job was to go kill Bitcoin, more or less, I think is the way she says it. Well, I know a lot of things now, and so I'm able to put some videos together and put a picture together for you. And here's one.
Who is the mastermind?
And I do say, enjoy the show. I should have put popcorn up here.
Who is the mastermind behind the Silk Road? But the government was sure going to try and find out. In fact, 2 federal task forces were back on the East Coast trying to do just that, to find out who was running the Silk Road. Where in the world were they located? And up on your screen, you see one of these task forces that was comprised of things like you've all heard of, the FBI, the Marshals, the DEA, and a whole other host of alphabet soup of agencies. And this task force was trying to find out who is running the Silk Road.
We looked at Bitcoin was the most
problem. I'm not going to play the whole that part, but you know the story. My point in showing you this video is, so there she was. She's going after Silk Road, and all of these government agencies have created a task force. Then we know that Homeland Security, and they say it in the video, that through the Silk Road investigation, they found out who the 4 Satoshis were. Okay, so it's ludicrous to think that that Katie Hawn does not know who the 4 Satoshis are. Anyway, the point is, my point in telling you all this is, why are all these people, why are they pretending like they don't know? For me, that's a red flag. My red flag is, what is their intention knowing that they actually do know and trying to make you think that they don't? Is their intention to kill it? We don't know. And that's the reason it makes me nervous. Now, I showed this in my last video about how I was offended by Brian Armstrong is sending out, he's all of a sudden he's dazzled by old Gary Gensler clips. And we've been showing those clips forever, and Coinbase never even acknowledged them. And if you remember this, Jamie Dimon was trashing crypto back in 2018. And he was also having secret meetings with the Coinbase CEO, Brian Armstrong, which leads me to this. This guy was putting out, he's the guy that put out the video, the old teaching video, and nothing against him. I mean, this guy, he doesn't know. But I made him aware. I said, I hate to break it to you, buddy, but the XRP Army uncovered everything 2 years ago. And I gave him John Deaton's video library. And I said, Coinbase just didn't think they would be a target back then, because they thought they had the Ethereum and Bitcoin free pass, and that monopoly would be all there was, is what I think. That's why they always listed all the Ethereum tokens and never even thought twice about it. They delist XRP the second that a lawsuit's dropped, and they haven't delisted any of those things that are involved in Ethereum. None of them. So then that brings me to this. Because I've said for a long time, we know from video that Joseph Lubin and others have told us in video that JP Morgan was at Ethereum before the mainnet launch. Before the mainnet launch. Well, I'd bet you dimes to donut that JP Morgan knows all about Bitcoin and Satoshi and everything else. I believe this entire industry has been built to make you think that the government and the JP Morgans are on the outside looking in, when it's really all of them that created this thing. Not all of them, but you know what I mean. Watch this.
As you can see here,
this is Katie Hawn too. She's talking right here. Watch.
As you can see here, instead of going through a series of convoluted hops, the stolen funds from the Silk Road accounts went straight to one place, to Mt. Gox. Mt. Gox was a cryptocurrency exchange based in Japan. But it too had suffered a series of hacks to the tune of $500 million. And what this meant was that by the time we traced this to Japan and to Mt. Gox, there were no records available for us to go look at. But remember what I told you about the blockchain, that it's immutable and it's permanent? So we were able to trace the flow of funds through the blockchain from Mt. Gox to a US financial institution.
And yes, you're reading that right. JP Morgan Chase, when nobody would bank crypto, just happens to be the banker for Mt. Gox. Just happens to be the banker.
And where that led was also a surprise. Right back to the Silk Road Task Force, but not to Knob, to a Secret Service agent on that same task force. A Secret Service agent by the name of Sean Bridges. But Sean Bridges was no ordinary Secret Service agent. He was joint duty assigned to the NSA. He was also the federal government's foremost expert in Tor and anonymizing technologies.
Again, with respect to Mt. Gox, there's not that much here that's all that unique outside of it being Bitcoin related. Bernie Madoff had his company banking at JP Morgan. JP Morgan caught on to the scam about a year before it collapsed. They pulled most of their money out of the Madoff fund, didn't tell their own account holders who were also with Madoff that they were doing that. After everything was revealed, the JP Morgan account holders who were also with Madoff, they sued JP Morgan for violating the fiduciary obligation that JP Morgan had to them, and they recovered over $2 billion in that lawsuit.
Thank you. And the JP Morgan executives went to jail, right?
No.
The JP Morgan executives went to jail?
No, they don't go to jail. One other thing on Mt. Gox that I've mentioned before, I'll mention it again because this guy says Mount Jed. Well, here's what I'll say. All you've ever heard is that Mt. Gox was in Japan. I don't, at least part of the time, I don't think it was. I think it was in Costa Rica because I've heard a video, and I could show you that video. I've put it out before, where there's a guy that's talking about how it was an attorney, and he's talking about how this guy wanted to buy Mt. Gox or invest in Mt. Gox, and the attorney goes, so he hopped a plane down to Costa Rica to meet with Jed. So the question is, why is he going to Costa Rica if Jed supposedly is in Japan founding Mt. Gox? I don't think it was created in Japan at all. I think it was Costa Rica. All right, these guys are at Consensus. Here's Jeremy Allaire from Circle at Consensus today.
Facing today, in my view, is a world where we have very active de-dollarization taking place. You're having very significant reactions to the U.S. risks in the U.S. banking system, risks with the U.S. government itself, geopolitical imposition on many parts of the world, the desire for alternative payment systems all around the world. And this is happening, and it's accelerating. And so the question in my mind is, how can we make sure that the dollar in the age of the internet is safer and more competitive? And I don't think we have a stablecoin bill in front of us. I think we have a dollar competitiveness bill in front of us.
Ooh, a dollar competitive, that's bold talk. Then we have this, where everybody's talking about how governments are wanting to get on the Web3. So while Gary Gensler ruins crypto here, other governments are
so there's definitely a narrative,
particularly
particularly when we talk to governments, that they don't want to miss the Web3 train.
Wow.
There is a conversation around how, when you think about the rest of the world, with the exception of the US and to some extent China, they really have become effectively colonized by American Web2 technologies. Everything is dependent on whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or Amazon, whatever. They have absolutely no more sort of tech sovereignty in their own countries and nations. So when you see governments saying we want to have a Web3 strategy, it isn't just because they look at the entrepreneurial activity. It's that they want to unshackle themselves from the dependency of US technology. Mm-hmm. And in this space, given the regulatory framework, actually there is a situation where it's quite possible that the US, for the first time in perhaps a very long time, might actually possibly fall behind, which would be kind of sad, but that seems to be a possibility.
Thanks, Gary. And then here's Ripple as a sponsor at Consensus. They tweeted this out today. Then we had a picture of Emi Yoshikawa, is it Yoshikawa, from Ripple, and she's sitting there taking a picture with the guys from XRP. Cafe. Then I had to correct Ted Cruz that the alpha is actually XRP, not Bitcoin. But he's being brought in by all these Bitcoin maxis, so he's got to play the game. Watch this.
Incredibly excited and incredibly bullish on Bitcoin specifically, crypto more broadly, but Bitcoin in particular. I think Bitcoin is clearly the alpha in the crypto sphere, both in terms of coming first and also being clearly the most dominant. I think the analogy of digital gold is powerful. And the insight that led to its creation is still extraordinary. Listen, I'm a Bitcoin investor personally. I have a standing buy order. Every Monday morning I have a buy of Bitcoin that comes in, and I own a little more than 2 Bitcoins. So it's and every Monday I own a little bit more. And I will say, I bought the dip, which I was quite happy with. But I'm also a long-term investor, so I'm fine with some volatility, and I recognize that there's going to be going ups and they're going to be going down. But 21 million is a number that is a firm number. And I think one of the attractions to Bitcoin, certainly for me, but for many, is as a hedge against inflation. And particularly when you have irresponsible politicians in Washington that spend money like drunken sailors, which is actually not fair to the sailors because at least they're spending their own money, and that print trillions and trillions of dollars. We see inflation all across the country. That was driven by this spending binge that happened the last 2 years in Washington, and it unleashed significant inflation. I think Bitcoin is an important check against that. I think it is also...
Okay, enough of the Bitcoin talk. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe. Hit the like button and tell your friends and family that they've always known who Satoshi is. And the question is, why is everybody going along with the idea that they don't know who he is? I mean, Ted Cruz, I'm assuming, is on all sorts of intelligence agencies. Are you telling me that Homeland Security met with the 4 Satoshis, but the Ted Cruzes of the world have not been briefed on this major topic? I don't buy it.